Welcome to Small Arms Solutions. Today we're very fortunate to have a very special guest with us. His name is Chris Sirois. Now, many of you know that my background is very different from many who do this, due to the fact that my background is in the industry. Military, law enforcement, forensics, as well as working in the industry in every capacity from product development, engineering, testing, evaluation, and along those areas. One of my areas of real interest is product development, is how do we develop firearms, especially military firearms? How do you come from a design concept from requirements that come down from a military, for instance, and then carry the project all the way through? And how are weapons really tested? How are things really done versus what a lot of us see on the internet versus the way things are done in the real world? And we're very fortunate to have a gentleman here with us today who, whether he believes it or not, is probably one of the most prolific designers we've had over the last 10, 15 years. He's been responsible for several of the most influential designs that we have, including the Sig 516, the MPX, the MCX, the Caracal A16, as well as several others. And this engineer has been through military weapons. A lot of guys who develop weapons, developing military weapons is a very different animal, because you work for Remington or Mossberg, you miss the turkey or whatever, you go try back next year. When you're developing military small arms, if the weapon doesn't work, somebody doesn't go home, somebody dies, somebody's a widow. So there's a lot more responsibility per se in what goes on to developing military firearms. So what we're going to be looking at today is how weapons are developed from an engineer who takes them from a requirement that's put out and carries the program all the way through. And we're going to talk about some of his most important designs that are being used all over the globe right now. So first, we'll introduce Chris Sirois. And Chris, can you give us a little bit of idea of your background and the companies you've worked for? And I definitely want to talk about some of your positions, and I'll ask you more questions after you get done with that.
Sure. Well, first I want to thank you for your introduction. I don't know
our
if
pleasure.
It's all deserved. One thing I do want to say too, it's not me. I mean, it's all me. I've had great teams that work with me. I had people travel with me from company to company. It's not a one-man show by far. But I do appreciate that introduction. My background, basically, I just for education, I have a high school diploma. That was all I had. I came out of school.
Like Stoner, like Kalashnikov.
Yeah. From there, I had went to work for a family business, which was a tool and die shop, and we had a customer that was doing firearms, gauges, and components, stuff like that, and we were doing that. And then he wanted to expand and get into firearms, so he asked us to, design a gun for him, which we did as a whole. My uncles did most of the work, and I did the machining and everything. That's how I started to get into firearms.
Stoner was tool and die also.
Yeah.
That's where his background was.
But then this person here, which is it was Connecticut Shotgun. It evolved into Connecticut Shotgun. I did design some guns on the side for him while I was still working for my uncles. One of them, I think, was the first one. It was the Fox 22 side-by-side, which one of the first two that I made is in the NRA Museum. Then I went out to work for him. I left my uncles after about 10 years and went to work directly for Connecticut Shotgun. I was their first employee. And from there, designed several shotguns, with a team of people, and put it into production. Did not just the CAD. I did all the programming, machining, fixturing. So that's where I really learned again how to manufacture more in production. From there, I did that. I worked there for about 8 years. From there, I went to Sig. And I started off there just running a prototype shop. They didn't have any prototyping to support engineering. So I went
like
there.
Close Model Shop?
Basically, that's what it was, yeah. So I went there. They gave me the freedom to buy whatever I wanted. So I bought all the good machines. I did prototyping for, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 months. And then I started to give a lot of input into some of their products. And then management moved me into engineering. Eventually, I think within a year or so, I was running the rifle engineering department, which at that time is when we did the 516, the 716, which we didn't have a target customer at that time. It was just to bring a professional rifle into SIG, which was basically just a pistol company at the time. And then from there, I went to, we started a new department there, the Special Weapons Group. And there we were working with like special operation groups from the U.S. and overseas, where we would design weapons for small numbers for specific missions, or even up to arming the complete army. I did that for I think about I left Sig after about 6-7 years. And then I went to Caracal, who was actively trying to recruit me for about a year. And it seemed like a new challenge, a little different scenery in Abu Dhabi. So
yes, I've seen that scenery with you over there.
They had a couple of products there, but they had big problems, and also the company was not structured very well. So I went there along with a colleague of mine who I worked with at Sig, who came from H&K, and he was in the engineering department at H&K. But we went to Caracal, and we helped fix the company and the products, which now I think I'm sure we're going to get more into the models, but
yes,
it's one of the best rifles on the air platform, I think, in the world right now.
And Caracal was far more than designing a gun. You were basically taking a country that had no industrial capabilities at all,
right.
and bringing and basically creating an entire manufacturing complex singly, where normally you would have many job shops that you would shop things out from in the United States.
Yeah, no, it was terrible. I mean, you couldn't even buy cap screws or springs. Here in the U.S., you go down to the corner store and buy it. Over there, you had to, order overseas. You had to worry about importing and everything. It was very, very difficult, but we did accomplish it. And mainly what they wanted accomplished there was to arm their own military, which we did. We did with the rifle, the 816, and the Caracal pistol. And then from there, they have been exporting also to other countries.
We've talked about some of your designs. Can you give us an example of some more of your designs that we may know about that you did while you were at Sig?
At Sig, well, all of them. What I did was, I think the first one was the 5.56. We converted it into the 7.62 by 39. So we called it the 5.56R, the Russian. And then we did an improved version of the 5.56. I believe it was called the XI. But then again, we went to get a more professional rifle that can compete with modern weapons both in the U.S. and overseas, and that's where we added the 5.16, 7.16. There's really nothing I hadn't really touched on. We did the MCX, MPX.
We're going to be touching heavily into those. The
MCX MR, which we called was the mid-range, which at the time was 7.62 by 51. Now that platform was adapted to the 8.6, which just recently, I believe, was going to be adopted by the U.S. Army.
Well, what I'd like to get into now is talk about how you develop a firearm. Where you start off with say you get a request from a military and you get a set of requirements. Can you go through you're going through the different phases that you would go through in that development?
Yeah, well, sure. Again, like the 5.16, 7.16, that was just to add to the portfolio. But the MCX especially, we worked very closely with the special operations and groups in the U.S. and a couple of other countries, where they had defined specific requirements. That was originally based on the 300 Blackout, the MCX. So we had our certain requirements. We had to meet overall length, the weights, the accuracy for subsonic, supersonic. You had to run suppressed, unsuppressed. So a very detailed list of specifications. First, what we do is we build what we call a concept model, which is just to prove we have an idea on how we want the gas system to work, and so we do it just to prove that the gun can work. Then from there we start adding the features that the customers asked for. Then we would invite them. They'd come down, and we'd spend a day shooting it, getting their feedback, and then going back to the office and trying to incorporate all their requests. For the MCX, I believe by the time I finished it, we did 16 or 17 revisions. over a 3-year period. That gun was, we had the time to spend on it, and we did a very professional job on it. There's really nothing on there that we thought can be improved on. We always follow the testing procedures as specified in the AC 225, which explains how to do all the different types. I mean, every test you can imagine: chemical testing, drop testing, environmental, hot, cold, mud, sand drag. So there's very detailed procedures on how to do all those tests.
Which includes specifically the viscosity of the mud, the amount of salt in the saltwater test,
Exactly.
the specific temperatures, specific types of sand. It's not basically you're going to Home Depot and grabbing play sand. It's,
No, exactly. For the mud test, like you just mentioned, there's different levels. Mud bath 1, 2, 3, 4, and really, and the AC 225 does not give pass or fail criteria. They just tell you how to perform the test. So you mud bath 1, you put a little bit of mud in there. 2, a little more. 3, a little more, and I believe it's 4. I think it's 3 or 4 where you start adding sand. So and then you keep going, and
specific types of sand too.
I don't remember off the top of my head.
Of course,
there's silica, and it's a specific blend, which is very hard to get. But anyway,
and temperatures, for instance, if I recall from some of the stuff that I did at different manufacturers, temperatures would be basically in 3 different levels. You'd have a certain part of the world you would have an extreme temperature, and then you would go to another part of the world you would have its extreme temperature, and then a third. So you would have the different levels which you would actually see on this planet.
Right. No, exactly. I mean, again, when you get into international specification of the request, I mean, if our customers in the desert, they're not going to be really concerned with minus 60 degrees. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it can be specific. But, again, when the MCX, our customers were, in similar environments. So I'm sure now, Sig, I'm sure they've delivered to other countries and have adapted to different environments.
So the customers will basically tell you, okay, this is where we're at. This is what our requirements are, and they'll give you that list of their requirements in addition to the government protocols. They know protocols.
Right. Exactly. Again, that's how we did the MCX. The 516. I mean, there are many variants that the commercial market has never seen, because we had different customers that had different requirements, and if the order is big enough, we of course would accommodate them.
So as you deal with specific ammunition, for instance, say you're doing a gun for, we'll say the military in UAE. Mm-hmm. You have an ammunition manufacturer in UAE who makes military ammunition.
Right.
So as you're developing that firearm, you're developing it around that specific cartridge that they have in their country, which will have its set muzzle velocity. It'll have its set port pressures and everything. So you know exactly what the gun's going to come up to.
Sure. Ideal, yes. It'd be ideal to test with their ammunition. That was not always the case. Sometimes we have to go to the countries themselves, and we would test the guns with their ammunition, come back and make the adjustments for it, and then. And
also, like a gun with adjustable valve, like the Sig 516 or the MCX, when you flip it over to suppressed, again having that same cartridge with the suppressor they're going to use, you can basically get it really exact for the most part. A gas port size that's going to work when you switch it over to the suppressor. And This is quite different from working in a gun in the civilian market for commercial purposes.
Mm-hmm. Well, again, that was another part that was customized for the customer. I mean, I think we had up to 4 positions. We'd have a suppressed, and then P1, P2, and then an off position where you basically run it like a bolt action gun. For the commercial market, we've P1, P2. So you have, most ammunition would work fine on P1, but then you get some of the lower pressured cartridges or whatever that have trouble in many guns. Here, you just we go to P2 and you put more gas in the system, and hopefully the gun would run. I mean, that's always been the goal on projects that I'm involved in, is to get the gun when it's commercially available to run with anything that's commercially available.
So when you were working with Caracal in UAE, or Caracal, say here when you came here and you were developing your 814, which would be your internal piston, which some people say direct impingement, which is wrong, but we'll say internal piston. So now you're making a commercial gun. Well, the commercial gun, unlike the military gun, has to work with a wide variety of ammunition. So you have to work with the lowest powered ammunition like the Wolf ammunition, and you have to go up to the highest 5.56 NATO. So you have a wide variety of type of ammunition. How does that complicate development versus making a gun for a military?
Well, it doesn't really complicate it, but you do have to compromise. We do overrun the gun for the ejection. For example, with M855, we're going to eject around 2-3 o'clock. And that is overrunning the gun. Commercially, that's necessary because you don't know what the customer is going to be using. But now if you, and it's also semi-automatic, so you don't really have so many issues. But now when you go full automatic, obviously that's going to be a professional customer, which you're going to know what they're going to have for ammunition. So then we would adjust the gas port to accommodate that ammunition.
Awesome. So as we see, we have it's a very complex system here of the actual development, and especially making military weapons. You have a set of written requirements, both NATO standards as well as what's coming from your customers. Mm-hmm. And developing military weapons overall, any automatic weapon is a fairly complex system, isn't it? Because you have a very small window of time to safely be able to extract and eject with pressures being down. There's timing is really of the essence, isn't it?
You got to give credit where credit is due on this system. And Stoner, I think he was a genius. When you get down to the numbers and you do the tolerance stacking and everything, I mean, he was dead on. He didn't have the CAD, the computer aid that we do these days.
You can actually make amazing. A model on a computer and make it work.
But he had that cam path perfect for the timing, for the locking, unlocking, ejection, also the straight pull, to give a little delay. It has not changed since the 1950s. There's no need to.
I was told by an engineer one time that if you were to look at, say, an engine in a car versus trying to make an auto-loading rifle, he would say it's much more difficult to do the timing on an automatic rifle than it is in an engine, because of the small amount of time that you have to make everything operate. Mm-hmm. Something that always stuck with me about the complexity of auto-loading firearms and timing.
That could be the case for other systems, but all these weapons over here are based on the AR Stoner design, and again, I have never changed anything as far as the timing from what Stoner had done, which was it's all controlled by the cam path.
Well, we're going to talk about some of the specific programs that you had worked on, and we have 3 rifles sitting in front of us. Mm-hmm. We have the HK416, in this case the MR556. We have the Caracal, we have the Sig 516, and we have the Caracal 816. Mm-hmm. Many of you guys who've watched my videos, especially on the Caracal and the Sig, there's a relationship in between these 3 guns. If you were to look at the HK416 started out, it was the first one of these systems. Now, the gentleman who he's referring to, that he worked with, came from H&K. He came from this design team, right, who created the HK416?
Yes, yeah. It was with H&K for quite a while. He had been involved in the upgrade of the SA-80 mm-hmm. in England, and basically they took that concept and they upgraded the AR with the external piston system.
Basically a G36 system that they placed into basically. That. When you guys designed your 516, you have a similar rifle, correct?
Yeah.
But when you designed it, you wanted to correct some of the issues that were originally seen with that.
Yeah, some of the issues. I wouldn't really say much on the performance side. Probably more on the logistics and maintenance. What we did, we used a very similar system. But as you know, H&K, most of their parts are proprietary, mm-hmm. And what we did on the 516 was make it compatible with the standard off-the-shelf M4 parts. Most of the parts are common with the M4.
And you dealt with probably one of the more significant issues would be the cyclic rate as far as the way that the rifle operates.
Well, yeah, we slowed it down quite a bit from how H&K typically runs their guns. Our goal in full auto, we were trying to keep everything between 780 and 850, and I know some of the that's rounds per minute, and I know the 416 they run well over 900.
And that's brand new. That's right out of the box. That's without gas port motion or such.
They'll end up a little faster than that too.
And you also, when you looked at the gas block, you had saw something that you wanted to change as well.
Yeah, there was they have a vent out in the front, which I have had comments on for creating a signature at night, especially with night vision and stuff like that. So we did fix that. We didn't exhaust through the front on the 516.
So basically, for a customer who would buy the 516, he's got parts commonality. He's got parts that are available. Where again, with HK, first off, they have to have the parts available, and if they do, the cost. This is the overall system's life cycle is much more expensive. This brought the cost down. A gun that would last longer because it's not really beating itself up as much when it would fire.
Right. Yeah. No. The 516 was tested multiple times, well over 20,000 rounds. A couple of times we went up to 25,000 rounds, and I'm sure the guns are still at Sig, and you can probably still shoot them.
And these guns have been sold all over the world. They've been used by foreign militaries all over the world, have they not?
Yeah, sure. I also I did support international sales and doing trials, and I've gone up against many of the big names in the industry, and I can tell you the trials that I had entered, I had never lost one with the 516.
So now we're going to fast forward to you and your colleague going over to Caracal, and what some of the things that you faced there, and also what you took from your 516 to go over to the 816, Caracal 816.
Right. Well, when we got there, they did have the concept already in place that they were basically trying to reverse engineer the 516. So they had to start, but there was really not much that was usable. So we did fix the rifle, which was very difficult in the Middle East. I think I mentioned this to you before. I mean, you can't go down. There's nothing available. You can't get any heat.
It's not an industrial part of the world, that's for sure.
Not at all. So we had to purchase many machines and do most of the stuff internally. We did our own injection molding,
hammer forging.
We did our own hammer forging, nitriding,
heat treating,
coatings, everything. We try to do as much as we can internally.
I'm saying this because I had the opportunity to visit on several occasions Caracal, and just to actually see what he's talking about. And I have to say, when they set the factory up and I got to walk through the factory, there was no expense spared. I mean, the machines, everything was. These were brand new buildings, brand new CNC machines. I mean, everything was top of the line.
Yeah, no, we did not have our hands tied for sure. Financially, we are allowed to do what we thought was best for the company, and we did. We did succeed very quickly. We took that rifle from what it was, which was nothing, and to delivering rifles within 18 months to the military. Yeah, it's part of the evolution of this platform. It's very similar to the 516, although we did do some minor changes to accommodate the environment. We did a little bit with the buffer and, of course, the gas system to accommodate that.
One of the most impressive demonstrations I think I've seen in my career overseas was when I visited Caracal, and his colleague took this rifle, opened up the back door, and was doing low crawls through that hot sand. I felt so sorry for him as he's crawling through this hot sand, and ejection port open, closed, and just bringing it right back into the building and doing live fires and magazine dumps. And I've seen other firearms that they wouldn't survive half of that. And then he goes and he hoses it off with water and blows it dries it off with an air compressor, puts it back together, and goes and does it again.
Yeah, no, that's we did make some adjustments to accommodate the environments there, and not just for the UAE, because now they do export to other local countries. There is no other firearms manufacturing in the area.
Short of like Israel and
that's
Egypt. Egypt, that's a different continent, but Middle East. But that's pretty much it.
Yeah. So I'm not sure exactly how many countries they export to now. I'm no longer with them, but there were quite a few.
And you did a pistol as well for them.
Yeah. We did. The Caracal F is the one that I worked on mainly. We got there. The gun We were lucky if they were lasting 3,000 rounds at first, and now we got our goal on that was 20,000 rounds, which we did accommodate, which was in the. I'm sure you remember over there was Caracal light ammunition, which also made the ammunition for UAE. So we developed that pistol to run on that ammunition, which it did. It ran fine. Then, as you know, Caracal came to the U.S. We had a subsidiary here, Caracal USA. We brought that gun over here, and of course, it didn't run with most of the ammunition. So some of the earlier ones may have some problems because it was developed again just for the Army, for the military in the UAE to use with CLA ammunition.
Ball ammunition.
So we spent about 6 months over here, many revisions with every type of ammunition that we found available, and we did accomplish that. So. The Caracal pistol should run on anything you can buy here.
And I understand those are just becoming available now, American made.
Yeah, again, I'm no longer with Caracal, but when I left, they were very close to releasing them for the commercial market here.
So here we're probably looking at one of your most prized children right here.
Yeah, this is.
Which would be MCX. Tell us about it. Tell us about where it came from and your experience during the development process. I'm leaving this up to you.
This is definitely the most interesting project that I have done, worked on. Again, I had a great team of people at Sig that we worked together on this. Basically, we worked with the special operations groups to get their initial requests and then feedback during the development. And not only that, I tried to make everything so it would be very efficient in manufacturing. And like I said, I did have a manufacturing background. So we designed this basically from the ground up. We did try to use some common parts that are available from ARs, but that was not a requirement. We just did that to try to help some of our customers, which
logistics
familiar with the M4, and especially for training purposes, that it would operate like an M4. We had the initial request on this was we had multiple calibers, suppressed, unsuppressed, different types of stocks. This was like a completely modular system. When we were finished the kit, I think the case was probably the size of this table. It comes with the upper and lower, 3 different stocks. I believe we had the 5.56, 300 blackout, 7.62 by 39 barrels, and different lengths, suppressed, unsuppressed, different size suppressors. It was basically an all-in-one kit. So again, we met it met and exceeded most of the requests and requirements from our customers. And it's for manufacturing purposes a lot easier and to mass produce by using basically like we use extrusions instead of forgings. Forgings are very rough, hard to fixture to be consistent. With an extrusion, it's nice. It's fixed. You just fix your machine the inside. So again, so it was not just to please the customer. It was also to help us at Sig manufacture them consistent and efficiently.
When you would develop something, for instance, you say you want to qualify it for as far as endurance, reliability, and so forth. How many rounds do you usually talk about when you're doing testing of prototypes to prove your concept that it's sound?
Well, if we think we're on a good path, we're going to go 20,000 rounds minimum.
With one rifle?
One rifle, yeah. And we would do extreme testing. If you follow some of the NATO or the U.S. requirements for testing, it's slow firing, cooling, and everything. We would fire full auto. We'd dump it in the water to cool it off. Another 5 magazines, full auto, and we really were harsh on the guns. And we've done this multiple times, 20,000 rounds with no cleaning. We just lubricate every couple thousand rounds, but never cleaned a gun. So we were very abusive to our test guns.
Now, for as far as calibers were concerned, this was initially a 300 blackout, correct?
The first caliber we did was a 300 blackout. Yeah, it's per request from one of the U.S. special operations groups. It was not only developing the weapon, we also worked with the ammunition manufacturer to develop the 300 Blackout for this specific customer. We had a subsonic round and a supersonic round.
Now, one of the differences we hear between 300 Whisper versus 300 Blackout was the whole purpose of 300 Blackout was for you to be able to use one gas system that would fire both of them reliably. What has been your experience with having one gas setting unsuppressed that would fire both rounds reliably, cycle reliably?
You're talking about subsonic and supersonic? Well, I mean, again, we designed this to the customer request, and their requirements were that this gun would need to run with the 300 Blackout suppressed with supersonic and unsuppressed with subsonic in all gas positions. We did have multiple gas positions here to, if used, it's much easier on the gun, but the gun needed to be able to run in either setting in all conditions. Which was very hard to do, but we did accommodate that. I'm sure problems with running very fast. A lot of times is the magazines keeping up. So we worked closely with C Products on this. With their magazines, they had developed different coatings and heat treatments for the 300 Blackout and the 5.56. And also, again, this was done in 7.62 by 39, and we did a lot of testing and developing the 7.62 by 39 magazine with C Products, which...
It's unfortunate Sig never released that as a conversion kit in that caliber.
Yeah, well, this was originally a professional gun, and after I left Sig, that's when they made it a commercial gun. But when I had this... program, it was strictly a professional, which we did make 7.60 by 39 and had delivered some. Again, I got to give a lot of thanks to C Products. As you know, the 7.62 by 39 has always had a bad reputation on the AR platform, and most people don't know that it's not. Mostly, it's not the rifles. It was always the magazines and the magazine design. And a
lot of people don't realize
really nailed it on that.
A lot of people don't realize that when you look at the 7.62 by 39, it doesn't have that banana shape just because it looks cool.
Right.
There's actually a reason for it. When you stack 15 rounds, you'll see that it actually does have that curve. It was funny, we were talking about the C Products magazines yesterday with a couple of the manufacturers yesterday. We were talking about the 7.62 by 39 and why a lot of companies don't want to make them in ARs because they don't work. And I said, I agreed with that for a while until I tried the new C Products Defense magazines. I've used those in I've used them in the Faxon ARAC, which uses an AR lower. I've used them in the XCR, Robert Summer's XCR. And when you use those, I've yet to have any malfunctions using that magazine.
Right, exactly. It's to me, it's almost a perfect magazine.
Colt stopped making the 7.62 by 39s in the 90s because of the magazines. It wasn't because of the gun.
Right. But again, they did an excellent job on it, and they never stop. I know them very well. He's got a perfect magazine, but he's still always looking to try to improve on things.
One of the interesting things that we did here when Chris got here was he's been away from this gun for a while.
Right.
So he actually came here to look at it to see how different this is the production model from what it was that he developed. And would you say you saw a lot of differences in this gun from the way you initially designed it?
No, I mean, there are definitely changes. I would say mainly maybe a little bit to take some of the weight out of it, but a lot of it for manufacturing reasons. I don't believe that functionally this gun is going to run any different than the first one.
The other thing that we were talking about is the new XM5 rifle, which again is based off of your system. Now, something else I wanted to ask you about was, did you guys, during this course of development, look at any 7.62 by 51 versions?
Yes, we had. We had the MCX MR, which was the mid-range, which we developed in 7.60 by 51.
I've never seen one before.
Yeah, no, I don't believe they ever released that commercially.
So that is the original design, which ended up becoming our XM5 for the most part, was out of the work that you did.
Right. I mean, I've only seen pictures. I haven't actually seen the rifle yet, but from what I've seen, that's what it is. It was basically they just adapted it to the 8.6 from the 7.62.
So what we're saying here is you had potentially a big hand in designing the next generation rifle for the U.S. military.
Well, I guess, yeah.
This rifle is probably, I have to say, in my opinion anyways, when we're looking at the next generation rifle, this rifle definitely had the potential. I just think they missed it with the caliber. I would have thought that this rifle in like a 6.8 SPC would have been a more ideal weapon for the U.S. military than this much larger caliber.
I'd have to agree. I don't understand it either. The more weight, the less capacity.
Now, the next weapon we're going to talk about, I have to say, is probably my favorite PCC or submachine gun in the industry right now, which is the Sig MPX, which is also one of your children. This is probably, at the time, one of the most unique systems due to the fact that, and I'd like to have you explain this, to the fact that you chose a gas operation system over a standard blowback. Give us sort of the history of where this came from. And I definitely want to hear what you had to say about why you chose the operating system that you did.
All right. Well, this basically was something that we wanted to do to add a submachine gun to our portfolio, and not just another blowback. So I mentioned before that, at first you make a concept demonstrator model. We weren't even sure we can get this to work. I mean, we did have to play a lot where we put the gas port to get it to cycle. But we did want to go, again, we wanted to keep it similar, keep it in the MCX family. So, parents-wise, operation-wise, to be very similar, which it is. So we use a lot of the same parts. But we wanted a delayed systems for control and also safety and durability. So we went with the rotating bolt, same as the AR.
So in your design for this, you started off with a clean sheet of paper, didn't you? You didn't have anything really in mind. You didn't have anything that you had to follow. You were able to...
Me and my colleague there, we had it in mind. We were asking the CEO multiple times for a submachine gun, and he never gave us the time. And then there was this one day in February, and I believe it was February, and he says, I need a submachine gun by April. Oh. So we did do it. I mean, we made that concept demonstrator. I think we were probably at the shop till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning that day, and we got it to run. Then I was designing parts as I was programming the machines, making the parts, and we did. We had our first concept, which looked very professional by the deadline. That first model, we put 8,000 rounds through it. Wow. And then we did start inviting some of our contacts or people that we've worked with in the past from the special operations groups for some feedback. And so we went from there. We did many revisions. Some of them went downhill. But we came back and, I know other manufacturers like to, you'll see that in some of their manuals. Try with different types of ammunition, find out what works best with your weapon. That's not the standard that we worked with. We got this thing to work with everything that we were able to obtain reliably and safely.
And we also see that you guys went your own way with the magazine, too. You didn't go off of the Glock pattern magazines. You didn't go after the Colt SMG. You developed your own magazine.
No, absolutely. We worked we chose Lancer to work with us on this. We wanted the polymer magazine. And one of the advantages of the polymer magazine is that is the lubricity and between the body and the follower. 9mm is there's a very large range of operations from frangible to plus P plus. So I mean, some conditions this gun does run over 1,100 rounds per minute, and a lot of magazines won't keep up. But the Lancer magazine, with the type of materials they use, hold up, and in addition with the steel lips, they were very durable.
It's very easy to load.
Yeah.
So for as far as the operating system, it has a very unique recoil impulse to it as well. In fact, it's probably the softest shooting 9mm SMG or PCC I've ever fired.
Right. Well, a lot of that has to do with the delayed opening of the gun with the rotating bolt. That was one of the main reasons why we chose that system, is to make it very controllable. And and the recoil is very low because of in addition to the delay, we have a bumper in the back of the gun, which absorbs a lot of the recoil.
So this was developed as a military product, wasn't it? If I recall.
Yeah, in Special Weapons Group, that's all we worked. Some of our products would leave, and then it would go into regular engineering, and they would commercialize it. But no, Special Weapons we only did professional weapons.
So you had to go through the entire series of testing, all the submersion, saltwater, hot, cold, sand, mud.
Sure, absolutely.
You had to do all that.
Just like with the MCX. I mean, we don't really follow the standards of testing. We're much harsher. We tested everything as harsh as we can, and we normally test everything to find out where the limits are. We want our guns to last 20,000 rounds, but that doesn't mean we fire 20,000 and we say, okay, it's passed. No, we go at least another 5,000 rounds to make sure that the gun is good for 20,000 rounds.
This PCC that you have here, this is my personal one that I've had for 7 years, and it has had extensive amounts of ammunition through it. And we've had numerous different kinds of hollow points, and I have yet to have a cartridge that it would fail with. Mm-hmm. I absolutely enjoy shooting this one. One of the interesting things I want to ask you about was about a year ago, another content creator, Tim over Military Arms Channel, was doing his own water gauntlet test. Mm-hmm. And basically he submerged the gun, and he had water lock. He had failures for it to operate. And when I initially saw that, I thought, this was originally developed as a military weapon, so it must have gone through this, before. That's when I contacted you. I said, "Hey, Chris, when you designed this, did you run it through those water tests?" And you said, "Yes." Mm-hmm. So,
yeah, no, absolutely. This gun does leave our group, and then it did go through some design changes in the different engineering departments for different reasons. But the one that we had at our Special Weapons, I'm sure if you can, it's probably still on YouTube somewhere, is the initial video that we did where
I remember
my colleague comes out of the
ice.
It was very cold that day too. The hole in the ice, he came out of there and fired the weapon. Yeah, that version of the gun would pass the water test.
So after he did that test and his failed and it went back to Sig, I did the same thing with this, and I had the exact same issue. Mm-hmm. So we both had sent those guns back to Sig, and Sig goes, "Oh, we fixed that. We have a new barrel," and basically there was if you want to call it a weep hole. Mm-hmm. It was an elongated hole rather than a round hole, and supposedly that changed. And just like the MCX, when you came in, you got to take a look at it and see how much did this change since you presented it as a finished product.
Well,
what did you think when you took a look at this as a final product versus what you handed over?
Well, especially in the bolt carrier system, I really like what they did. They did an excellent job on it, putting the firing pin block safety. No, I really can't. I don't see anything bad. Going back to the gas block and the water, that slot, I can understand why they did that. Why you lose the first round is because the gas block fills. Water gets in the gas block, and then you'll lose that. You'll fire a round, but it won't cycle. Mm-hmm. Then after that, you reload, and it'll continue to cycle. So I'm sure that's what that slot is to release that water.
It's elongated, a much larger. So interesting,
right?
Just interesting aspect.
The piston's going to move, so it's going to allow it to drain over the travel.
Well, when we first talked about it, we looked at it, and you said there was four grooves that were cut on the piston that were supposed to allow the water. Right. We pulled the piston out, and it had the grooves that you talked about. Mm-hmm. This was the only thing that they had changed. So I was talking with Tim about it. We're like, well, why would they change to this? We really couldn't figure it out, but yet we sent the guns back to them. They fixed it, and both of these guns have passed the test they have now. Mm-hmm. So I think as any designer, once you complete your design and you turn it over to production, they make changes that you're not quite made aware of. You're not really asked your opinion on should I or shouldn't I. If you look at interviews with Stoner, I mean, all those changes that were made to the AR-15, he was never asked anything, by Colt. But then when you hand him the gun, it looks mostly familiar, but you can see some things that were changed. Mm-hmm. This, in my opinion, and I've done comparisons to several, PCCs or SMGs. I think this is the finest one in the world right now. I did a review where I compared this to the CZ Scorpion, to a Colt pattern 9mm submachine gun, and to an MP5. And this came out as number one. Of all those guns, the recoil impulse was great. The recoil on the MP5 was light too, because you did have the
delayed blowback system. Yeah.
But the trigger on that was horrible. The trigger you have on here was the finest trigger that we have. Well, it was similar to the Colt. With the recoil impulse, the ability to change magazines quickly, the ability to load magazines. Because if you try loading a Colt magazine, the straight stick magazines, you get the first 15 is good, but then you're really trying to get them in. The magazine was excellent, translucent. You can see what's in them. This is truly probably the best 9mm PCC that's out there right now.
Well, when we developed this, we really only considered the MP5 our competition, which is still widely in service all over the world. But it has its issues. Again, H&K is notable for having proprietary parts. We again here tried to use a lot of common parts with the AR.
What I found with the MP5 was World War II technology. If you look at compared to what it is now, you look at the modularity and look how it's applied.
All right.
This is 2000.
Well, again, that's what
technology.
We knew what our competition was, and that's what we needed to be. So it was parts over here. Then we had the modularity for sure, and then the maintenance and spare parts. Here you change you have a problem. You put with the parts. You put a new bolt in there. It's fine. With the MP5. Now you have to measure, the rollers and everything. It's very difficult for maintenance on that.
With the piston system that you have on here, how often do you have to take that piston apart to clean?
Again, when I tested everything, we did it as harsh as possible, and we would never take it out.
So for any really end user, there really is no reason to ever take that apart.
I don't know. I mean, we would do our 20,000 round test, over a week or so. If you're going to fire rounds, put it in a safe for, months or years, and you might want to clean it.
Okay, so you can take it apart. Interesting thing about the market for this too is obviously we've been both overseas a lot. Mm-hmm. The 9mm PCC or 9mm SMGs in the U.S. law enforcement market there's not really a market for it. But when you go overseas, these are viable all over the world. All over the Middle East, the Caribbean, South America. Throughout the rest of the world, the 9mm SMGs are still viable weapons. It seems like law enforcement over here has always all gone to M4s and gotten away from this. But it's amazing. It's the international customer who is most apt to go for these.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's an excellent weapon. Well, thank you very much for taking your time to go over some of them. I mean, these are all significant weapons that are in use right now. And again, between with this and, of course, with your MCX being the new XM5, a derivative, that's a very significant career accomplishment, to say the least, that the U.S. government was taking the design that you guys did in a variation and applying it to our next generation weapons.
Yeah, I am proud to have been a part of the team that led the team that developed these products. It was one of the better times of my life.
I really thank you for coming, because this is an aspect that nobody talks about. On YouTube, we always talk about, we go out, we shoot them, they say this is the greatest thing, but getting that the idea of where these things come from concept, that's something that a lot of people, I don't think they get the appreciation for until they actually get it presented to them of how it really does, and it shows the creativity and the professionalism, not to mention the commitment it takes to take a product from a sheet of paper all the way through to having a final product that you can actually put in the hands of a soldier. Mm-hmm. And that's a credit to anybody who develops military weapons, because again, somebody's life depends on this, and the work that you do literally is something.
And you also have to give credit to the company. I mean, for allowing us to understanding what it takes to develop a product like this. You had the amount of ammunition, hundreds of thousands of rounds, the time. I mean, I said the MCX, we spent about 3 years on there. I mean, it's not something that should be ignored.
It's not rushed either.
No, we were not rushed. We were allowed to make the best product that we were able to.
I can't thank you enough for taking the time out of your schedule to come out and share this experience with us. I know my viewers are going to be they're going to be mesmerized by this because it's a perspective that they've never gotten before, that you just don't see on YouTube. And thank you for taking your time, and certainly thank you for all the work that you do. You've affected a lot of people, a lot of countries, a lot of law enforcement agencies by giving them the best weapons that they can possibly have to do their jobs and come home.
Well, again, me and my team.
All of us have teams, but as I said, your part. Everybody has a part to play in it. But you were lead on these, so you had to direct those people, correct?
Right.
So this is all you guys' baby, but
yeah.
In the end, this stuff has to come from somebody, and then take it through the process. We can't wait to see anything else that comes from you in the future. I'm sure you're not.
Maybe.
I'm sure you're not. I'm sure you're not done. I don't think retirement's going to sit well with you either.
So it hasn't.
And he also has his own gun shop out in New Hampshire, Cyrotech, which he does live in that little communist enclave up north. But there's a little bit of a beacon up there of freedom in some of those states up there. It's probably New Hampshire's probably one of the more lenient states up in that area, isn't it?
Sure. Yeah, it's Maine and Vermont are very
not like Connecticut and Massachusetts and New York.
No, they're the worst. No, up there, New Hampshire's very very good on the gun laws.
Up there, are you guys allowed to have these types of weapons up there and suppressors and things in New Hampshire?
Sure, yeah.
Okay,
and no licenses for pistols you can conceal or open carry, just as long as you're...
Okay, so you are that is a free state then. It's not like the ones below it. Okay.
Far from
That's
it.
nice to know. As I said, I had to flee that part of the world, as you know.
Well, I fled Connecticut.
Well, again, thank you very much. We appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.